There's a death due to a gun accessed by a child. That's our top story tonight. Gerard Ramallo joins us with this story.
Yeah, Reid, the hearing took place up in Carson City, but of course, as always, it was made available to those of us here in Las Vegas at the Grant Sawyer building via video conference. Now, this law was inspired by a young girl who was shot and killed accidentally, a 13-year-old. Her parents testified up in Carson City, but her grandmother was here today, and she handed out photos like this one of the 13-year-old to everyone who entered the hearing.
The kids are killed daily by their siblings, friends, cousins, and friends.
The arguments in favor were heartfelt. AB 153, inspired by Las Vegas parents Darshell and Jacob Moeller, and written by Democrat Assemblyman Ozzie Fumo.
Basically, the person has to know, have reason to know that a child may obtain the negligently stored firearm.
The Moellers lost their 13-year-old daughter, Brittany, when she was accidentally shot and killed by her friend. The two girls found an unlocked gun in her friend's kitchen cabinet.
This kind of tragedy is preventable, and it starts with the responsibility of adults.
Proponents of AB 153 say the law closes a loophole that often leaves those responsible never having to face any penalty or fine. Now they'd be charged with a misdemeanor for a first offense.
Look, when somebody runs into somebody on the street because they're drunk, they are held responsibility because of a decision that they made. Why is owning a gun where there's an accidental death, why is that any different?
Present at the hearing in Las Vegas was Brittany's grandmother, who clutched a photo of Brittany throughout. Also present were several opponents who wouldn't speak to the media, but did argue before lawmakers.
And many of these are my friends and people that I know. And by the way, you have to understand that I don't trust many of these gun control advocates, because I believe that what they're trying to do is to prop up a certain event to create fear-mongering in order to pass laws that endanger our constitutional rights. So I don't trust them. I'm very suspicious.
Most of us do have a responsibility, and I am a responsible gun owner.
Ultimately, they say child endangerment laws already exist, and the language of this bill places unfair restrictions on gun owners, specifically those living in rural Nevada. So if it passes, we mentioned a first offense would be considered a misdemeanor. If there's a second offense, that would be considered a felony. It would be punishable by potentially jail time and up to a $5,000 fine.
And gun safety, especially since the 1 October shooting massacre. Good evening. I'm Reid Cowan.
And I'm Marie Mortera, both being discussed before state lawmakers right now. News 3's Steve Wolford live with our top story tonight at the Grant Sawyer building with more.
And by the way, this guy interviewed me in the building but did not put my interview as part of the entire clip. You should ask him why he did that. Was he trying to hide some information? I don't know.
More on the bills and the reasons for the debate, Steve.
Well, that's right. The state lawmakers have been listening to public comment on two separate pieces of gun legislation. One is Assembly Bill 153. They're talking about that right now. The other one, earlier today, was AB 291. It's a lot more complicated and controversial. AB 153 would make it unlawful to knowingly leave a firearm in a place where it might fall into the possession of a minor. Exceptions would include instances when a gun is stolen in a burglary or somehow removed from proper storage in a gun safe. AB 291, however, is more complicated. It includes language to prohibit modifying a firearm.
The biggest piece, and I think what most Southern Nevadans are excited about, is the banning of bump stocks and other accessories that...
And by the way, I believe this woman tried to run for assembly. And thank goodness she didn't win, because of course Henderson is not liberal enough to vote her in.
Turn a semi-automatic weapon into an automatic weapon whose sole purpose is to take the lives of humans.
But would it apply to someone with arthritis who only wants to make it easier to pull a trigger?
It seems very broad and very vague. It could go anywhere from binary triggers to lighter trigger pulls to trigger springs, anything people use for disability, hunting, competition.
Even more concerning to critics, changing state preemption, giving local municipalities the ability to enact their own gun ordinances, making it possible to break the law by driving across Clark County. county.
You could live in Henderson. Henderson can have its own bill. They could come across, come into the county, come into the city, come into North Las Vegas, and have 4 separate bills.
Yeah, oh my
one of
gosh.
the 3 get pulled over, and now you're in violation when you had no intent when you left your house.
AB 291 sponsor Sandra Yerigui cited CDC numbers during today's.
By the way, this woman has shut me up many testimonies I've given. Maybe you should contact her and tell her what she's doing is wrong.
Is the reason tighter gun control is needed.
In 2014, in the state of Nevada, there were 429 gun deaths. In 2015, there were 446 gun deaths. In 2016, there were 498 deaths, and in 2017, there were 508 deaths.
Yeah, okay, but the rising gun deaths have little to do with the crime increase, or especially the fact that there are guns. There could be a lot of different factors. What about the years, like decades ago, that we had a lot more gun deaths? Is she telling you this?
That is an increase every single year.
Another aspect of AB 291 would make it a little easier to create gun-free zones. Supporters say it would make those places safer. Critics of the bill say that gun-free zones only tell criminals that there's nobody there to stop them from committing a crime.
Everyone, my name is Cyrus Hojati. I wanted to explain what happened to myself at the legislative hearing. They were talking about gun issues, and I tried to speak at the neutral position. And despite that I was sitting down and I was sitting there for about a minute or two, they didn't let me speak. They skipped, and they brought the person who introduced the bill to share more comments and reviews, believe it or not. And I think they're doing this because they probably want to shut down real hardcore information truth. The person who shut me down, I believe, or skipped me, was Assembly Steve Yeager. And I believe that this guy didn't want to hear the truth. He cut me off. He actually covers my district where I live, shockingly. And I don't know what might have been, maybe because the woman who I asked to go first didn't push the microphone, so they just thought that they got distracted or something, but I thought it was totally, totally unprofessional of them. So what I wanted to explain was the fact that you have to follow the money. We're getting a lot of money from interests like Michael Bloomberg, from Steyer, from George Soros, who fund these PACs, who fund these organizations, who fund these campaigns, politicians, and so forth, and they influence our policy. And that's where the real harsh truth about this. We need to restructure our campaign finance system so that we make sure that the campaign financing really comes from the people of the state. This is not a global system. But what we do have is a global society, a globalism, basically, where billionaires are pumping money into campaigns. And so what I believe they're trying to do is they're trying to erode our liberties. And just look at the facts. I've lived here for a while now, and I've never gambled one penny of my money. Now, how do you explain that? So gambling is legal, I don't do it. Guns are legal, I don't own a gun. How do you explain that? I think it's the mental factor. If people are educated, if people are raised properly, if you have a efficient economy, and if you don't have all these nasty prescription drugs that are making these people insane and cuckoo, then what that means is that you're going to reduce the chance of violence. That's the bottom line. Now let's look at the record. The city of London now, I believe, has a higher murder rate than New York City. How do you explain that? Well, if you look at the kinds of people that have been flooding into London.
Okay, so I was talking about gun and violence control compared to many cities across the U.S. Now let's talk about London, because they're having knife control. This is absurdity. It's getting out of hand. And this is a result of our global immigration plan. And first of all, you have to follow the money, because who's pushing all this gun control policy? Now, I'd like to ask you all, raise your hand if you did not take money from the Bloomberg gun control interests, because Michael Bloomberg pumped a lot of money into gun safety PACs. This is one of the things you have to point out. And I believe a lot of this gun control comes from the October 1st shooting. And let's talk about that shooting, because the CEO of MGM Resorts International, he had a massive sell-off of company stock. So I feel as if that this was a setup, and he donated heavily to many of the campaigns in last election cycle. I just feel that events like this is used to scare people to pass laws, just like 9/11 resulted in the war of terror. And in fact, many of the problems are still going on today. But the issue is people control, it's societal control, condition control. See, this is one of the things you have to understand. We live in a society with massive intakes of prescription drugs. That's leading to violence. We're living in a rigged economy where the elites are getting more and more and everybody else is getting the crumbs, and people have to work longer hours. We have a poor family structure. Nuclear families are disappearing. The stress, the commutes, the car-dependent lifestyle. We need to improve the health and the well-being. See, the real problem is society, it's engineering, it's condition. And it certainly doesn't help. Poor architecture. I just had a protest of the new homes. That has an effect. We have to talk more about these details.
Your 2 minutes are up, sir. So I'm going to go to the individual to your left.
Just like Soros pumped a lot of money into Emily's List, which gave the number of females we have in our legislature, and just like Tom Steyer, that actually pumped the Next Gen Nevada, that pumped a lot of young people to vote in our elections, we see that this anti-gun lobby is pumped up by Michael Bloomberg. And a lot of things that come from New York City is very shady and corrupt, believe it or not. So you can see here Michael Bloomberg, 29 million bought in Nevada in gun control laws. Keep this in mind. What is exactly going on? And you can see right here, once we go down the article, with 100% of the proceeds benefiting Democrats, with like SB 143. This is $29 million. But the NRA only bought about $1.5 million. So they say, oh, the gun lobby, NRA, they're so powerful. Yet it's nothing in comparison. And let's just see who it is. Now, look who's here, Steve Yeager. This guy is an assemblyman that covers my district. Sandra, the one who just spoke on the video. Ozzy Fumo spoke on the video. So do you really think that they're doing this based on their heart? No! They're doing this because they want to rob our liberties. Look at this, Nicole Canizaro, the Nevada Democrat Party. And you can see here, every town for gun safety. You can see what this whole agenda is about. And again, look at this article right here. It comes to no surprise, believe it or not. Look at this. Illegals. What do you expect? They're exempt from the gun laws. And it exempts them from deportation. Folks, just because that they're not putting a bill on immigration does not mean it does not have any effect at all with illegal aliens. Because this illegal alien crisis can affect our bills regarding education, Medicaid, and even districting, which is why Sisolak put an executive order regarding the U.S. Census citizenship question. Folks, this is what they do. They use these immigrants to pump them into the voting booths, and they're here mainly due to the fact that casinos and unions pump them into our state. They change our laws. Then again, you also have to understand, the border is still quite open. Thanks to the courts, thanks to Congress. And believe it or not, the result is we're still seeing a flood of these illegal aliens coming in. And I can assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that this is allowing MS-13 to come into mainly our state. I believe many of these illegals who come from Central America, they're going to be coming to Las Vegas. And they're going to be bringing crime. They're going to be exempt from the gun laws. They're going to be pumping in drugs. They're going to be bribing our politicians. Folks, remember, this is a global immigration plan. The Clergy plan. I'm going to do a video about this pretty soon, where they're trying to destroy Western civilization. I keep pairing this to the legislature every time I am there. So what you have to understand is that they're preparing for what's going on, because they know that these illegal aliens who are here, or who just came here, and more will come pretty soon, they can use them for votes, and they can use them to pursue their control agenda. Now again, Nevada Democrats will reject an effort to an amendment to require illegal aliens to be turned over ICE. Illegal aliens are strictly prohibited from purchasing firearms. But under the Nevada law, if an illegal alien walks to a gun store and purchases a firearm, the background check paperwork is submitted to the NIC system for a background check. Under the new law, they don't have to report to ICE. You see, this is the harsh reality of what's happening. And I believe this is something from Laura Loomer. LVMPD determined that MS-13 is responsible. Now think about this. Metro Police should be spending more of their time going after MS-13, and meanwhile, instead they're going after me, who is protesting these disgusting new homes, as I showed you a few days ago. And you can see here, Metro seized 18 firearms, including AR-15 rifles and the pistols from the gang members. All the weapons were stolen. It was confirmed that MS-13 killers were illegal aliens with federal deportation orders pending. So, a veterans group that they're going to be filing a lawsuit. And they're going to be pointing out they're going to raise money and hire lawyers to sue SB 143. It's against the U.S. Constitution, the Nevada Constitution. But remember, folks, you guys are not going to fully solve this gun issue until you get immigration under control. Because it's these immigrants, it's these wackos that are being pumped in to vote and change our laws. You need to stop this. And remember, the worst part is not the politicians or the immigration. The worst part is that people are not rising up enough to stop this. There needs to be mass protests all over the streets. Now, certainly there's been an improvement, but there has not been enough to really counter the difference. So, anyway, tell me what you guys think. If you like this video, please subscribe. Thank you so much. Let's get this momentum growing.